Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and get started. Sister Lana will be joining us shortly. We're just going to go ahead and get started. It's 1:04. Thank you, everyone, for being here and welcome, YouTube folks, and everyone on the different platforms listening in and watching. You are welcome to AIM Art. I am your host, Dr. Ijeoma Nodima Para, she, her, and all are my pronouns. And I'm calling in, as always, from the original homelands of the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, Three Fires people in the territory of Wa'awiatanong, otherwise known as Detroit. And I recognize also and honor my Igbo African and African diaspora ancestors, communities, and descendants in this moment. I am a physician, scholar, scientist, artist, activist, coach, consultant, speaker, mama, and wifey. And my personal professional and business mission in life is to dismantle white supremacism and the delusion of white violence and white terrorism by eliminating anti-Black racism from medicine, healthcare, public health, and the sciences, all while centering and celebrating Black brilliance, Black abundance, Black joy, both locally and globally. So again, thank you for being here. You could be anywhere else in the world doing anything else in the world, but you are here with us, and welcome to AMART, the Anti-Racism in Medicine Action Roundtable. And as always, to level set, we are a multi-professional that is a transdisciplinary, that we cut across all sectors, disciplines, professions, and backgrounds, from doctors, teachers, bus drivers, community members, etc. Community of unapologetically Black and unapologetically pro-Black, liberatory, pan-African, Afrocentric, Afro-optimists. That means that we celebrate and center Black magic, Black brilliance, Black excellence, truth, joy, strengths, assets, abundance, possibility, creativity, and future dreaming. So we are committed to developing the innovative knowledge, skills, and attitudes used to inform transformative actions towards eliminating anti-Black racism in medicine, healthcare, public health, and the sciences. Ubuntu. So every week we meet, every 1 to 2 weeks, I should say, on Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to shout out our partnerships that make this work possible. So Brother Sinclair Skinner of ILoveBlackPeople.com and Howard University and Sirius FM. Also Q Search, the Canada-US Coalition to End Race Correction in Healthcare, of which I'm a proud co-chair with my sister Lana James of Ready for Black Lives. Want to shout out Black Dog Village, National Residents Council, Ubuntu Family, Black Family Health Center, Hood Medicine Initiative, and Black Mental Health Alliance of Nashville with Sister Dr. Nisi Hudson and Brother Benny as well. Want to also shout out HEDGIM, the Health Equity and Justice Initiative, in Medicine Initiative at Wayne State University, and Apara Speaks, my company. So just a few housekeeping before we jump in. We are a Jumbotron family, honey. So we will be doing a lot of Jumbotron action, adding things to the to the dashboard, Jumbotron or Nest, as it's called in different spaces. I'll do my best to also do the same on YouTube, y'all. But I want you to make sure that you are inviting folks into this space, ping folks, DM folks. I always say, get your friends, your family, your loved ones, and your exes and haters up in here, your in-laws, your cousins, mama and them, the person you ran, you gave your number to, or you got their number last time. Bring them in, honey. We can all learn together under the Twitter baobab tree, as it may be. Also, as you hear wonderful things, go ahead and tweet it out and hashtag AimArt. And you can, again, visit our website to join the community for different work that we will be doing out of this space. And I'll put all those on the Jumbotron. Although it's tweeted out on my timeline, I'll be adding them into the Jumbotron as well. And DM me with any questions, comments, resources, and feedback. We like to share resources. So as we are having the conversation, stuff we don't know. And that's why we're Ubuntu, right? And so go ahead and share those links, those references and resources for us. You can either ping those to the dashboard or the Jumbotron yourself, or you can DM them to me, and I will be happy to do that. And finally, we always lift up the work that the community is doing. So if you have something you've published, some organization, some program, some whatever that you have done recently, go ahead and share that. We want to celebrate you. We want to support you as well. So with no further ado, let's get into it. And before I do that, let me just check on Sister Lana real quick to see if she needs anything as she's trying to get on. It is sometimes a little challenging calling in from Canada. So I am just, oh, there she is. Isn't that amazing? Just on time. Sis, you joined us right on time. And so we are getting into the topic of today. And the topic is, as you see, hey, what does information technology justice look like in the era of Elon Musk? With the Elon Musk himself, or itself, like some people say, purchasing the Twitter, this Bird app. What does that look like for Black people? What does that look like for those of us doing Black liberation work and justice work? I'm sure you've seen all kinds of Twittering on this Bird app. People are leaving or trying to leave or threatening to leave. People are staying or trying to stay or threatening to stay. There's all kinds of conversation going on this. And it really prompted us to start thinking, well, and what does it mean for us as Black people that are, expanding as part of the expansive work of liberation that we do and of justice that we do, have incorporated a social media element to it, and have done quite well. I have to admit, I wouldn't have met almost everybody on this call. Shout out to Dr. Pascal, Dr. Brian, Brother Bryant Manning, Sister Helena, okay, Freedom Fighters, Sister Elodie, Sister Yolita Lodi, Sister Dr. Day. I would not have met none of y'all before a Twitter. Well, I would say for Sister Yolita, we did meet on ACGME. But honestly, for most of everybody, this social media has been really key to me creating a community, okay, and has opened up doors to expand my work and make me, even I believe, more of an effective worker in this space. So what does that mean in the era of a person such as Elon Musk? So we're going to really unpack this with two amazing goddesses, the one and only Dr. Nisi Hudson, baby, co-founder of Hood Medicine Initiative, a wonderful supporter and partner of the Roundtable, and just really a phenomenal sister, scholar and activist, and just all around just human in the world and in my life. I truly am blessed to know her. And of course, the one and only, the indomitable, peerless, indefatigable sister Lana James, who took a sabbatical, and we missed her sincerely, and so proud for her to be back with us, albeit potentially temporarily. We're going to hear more about that. And we're just really, it's just an honor to be in the presence of these amazing goddesses. So let's start with Sister Nisi. I would just go ahead and, tell the people who you are. We'll just start with a little introduction, remind the people you've been here on the round table before. But sometimes we all need to be reminded of the divinity that you are, okay? The goddess that you are. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you do. And that has been evolving recently too. So I'm excited to be caught up myself. Just talk about, introduce yourself a little bit here, and also where your joy is on today. Go ahead, Sister Nisi.
Thank you for that introduction. So I think today is very timely for the work that we do, because obviously we do a lot of sort of analyzing and tracking myths and disinformation in digital spaces. I'm sure what will be upcoming changes to Twitter really only makes, misinformation more fomentable. It makes, obviously we've seen what's been going on lately with, people exploding with racial epithets and hate and violence, which is all they've been wanting to do for so long. They feel so stifled. They need their hate out in the world, and they want to set it free. And we get it, because we've lived under their tyranny for centuries. But I think this is a really crucial juncture, because, as you said, a lot of us are able to facilitate the work that we're doing on these platforms, and it's not super helpful when there's an army of Nazis and their faithful boss contributing to what should be, a safe and, I don't know, a safe, compassionate sort of space with with humanity. And I guess that's hard to regulate in the digital age, because in the virtual world, in the real world, we cling to our hate. We haven't found a way to live together harmoniously. So it makes sense that that's reflected in the digital spaces as well. So I'm excited to get into the conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. And, Sister Nisi, you do a lot of work in terms of background. I like that you talked about disinformation, and you do a lot of work in informing Black communities, particularly about the truth when it comes to public health. Isn't that right? Sister Nisi?
Sorry, I muted myself again. Yeah, that's right. And so I feel like this, in some ways, is going to make our job even harder, not just because of kind of the restraints that'll probably go away, but also I think it'll be harder for those of us who kind of depend on like Twitter analyses to figure out what people are chatting about, to have reliable access to those platforms as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I hear all of that. I hear that, just like the challenge to doing the work of education and truth telling. And truth telling, when it becomes a free for all marketplace for trolls and disinformation terrorists to take over, that indeed presents itself as a challenge. Sister Lana, welcome back, and go ahead and remind the people who may have forgotten because of your sabbatical, which was well needed, about who you be. And as you do so, know that we are all lifting you up and holding space for you. Sister Lana has endured tremendous loss in the space of a couple of months, even up until recently, as of yesterday. So the fact that she's here with us, I mean, I just can't, with the degree of commitment and love and passion that she holds for the work that we do here on AMART, despite contending with incredible loss. And so I just want to let you know that you're loved and cherished and valued, and our hearts really go out to you during this time. And I appreciate the fact that you, despite going through what you're going through, make the time to be here.
Thank you. I just want to say hey to everybody. I'm really glad to see that everything's moving along. Ijoma, Nadim Opara, my good friend, I will have to give you the same. Oriki, you are indomitable. You keep this channel going. You create space for people so that even when you can't be here on Saturday because you got to do all your running around, I know people come back and they check the information and they listen to it while they're in their car, getting ready for bed, catching up on what's going on in the world. And hey, Sister Nisi, nice to be on with you. And I want to say thank you for holding space and, recognizing what's going on. I just want to give a shout out to my partner. It is his favorite aunt who has passed away. And I'm just going to say to, Auntie Wilma, who was an amazing, lovely person. She was married to a lovely man, Uncle Eddie, who was absolutely wonderful to me. And now they are together because those two loved each other like lovebirds. And so I'm very glad that they're reunited. And she joined him so they can be together. And my uncle, the last remaining elder in my father's side of the family, his funeral was on Wednesday. And so it's that kind of time. And, before that, it was my favorite aunt and my young cousin and whatnot. So it's that time of life. And as some folks, joke and I think are a little bit serious, there's a number of interesting events going on astrologically. And folks are saying people are trying to ride out. They're trying to ride out and make sure they catch the right train. And so for our elders who have done their work and who have left us in their stead, I'm very thankful. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lana James, and I am co-lead of Ready for Black Lives, which stands for Research Evaluation, AI Data Ethics for Black Populations. And I do that with my accomplice, my comrade, my ride or die, Dr. Sian Wilson, who is at Wilfrid Laurier. She's out in Waterloo. She does a lot of amazing work. Before we sign off, we got to make sure we bring Sis in so you can hear her for yourself. She's fierce. And my other work is around artificial intelligence, medicine, and data justice. I'm a postdoctoral chair over at Queen's University, which is 2 hours to my east. And for y'all who don't know Canada, I am in Ontario, which is the most populous province. We are bordered by the states of New York and by my sister state, Michigan. And the capital city of Ontario is Toronto. I live in Toronto proper. I'm a downtown girl. That's the key things you need to know about me. And what I'll try to do throughout this is help give context, because as said, like, this is not just any guy who bought any app. And in terms of where I find my joy today, I'm just grateful and glad that Auntie Wilma has reunited with her partner. It's been a long wait for her. She's been sitting by the window waiting to join him for some time. And she was able to do that in a healthy way and not have to, be compromised for too long and be in her own glory. So I'm very happy for that. Although I'm extremely sad that she's gone. And I'm, also sad for my partner because real likes Auntie Wilma. So it's a bit of a sadness as well. But on that note, I'm going to hand it back over to you, and I'm looking forward to the ensuing conversation about this interesting turn of events that fits with so many other pieces that we have to come to terms with.
Absolutely. Thank you, sis. I appreciate you. And again, holding space with gratitude for you making the time for us. Now, I think what you have to say is a great segue. Sister Nisi talked about, the concern around disinformation and the concern around safe spaces. And so my question for you, Sister Lana, you have actually researched. So, you're perfect because you have actually researched Elon Musk. You have the lowdown on this man and his background to provide that context, as you said. Plus, you have extensive background in artificial intelligence and data justice. So this is the best intersection to provide the lens of analysis required to unpack this topic today. And so why don't you go ahead and give us the lowdown on Elon Musk and who he is as a person and what he stands for and why his purchase of Twitter is significant for everybody and specifically for Black folks.
I think what I'll do is I'm going to share a number of facts and allow us all to kind of pull what we need to from that, because we all inhabit different locations, so the implications will weigh differently. But what I will say is this, which is open to the public to know. In 2020, Elon Musk cooed, and I'm reading it, quote, "We will coup whoever we want to, deal with it." And this was his response to Bolivia demanding that he have his hands off their country and hands off attempting to create a coup to upset the government. And for those who aren't familiar with the politics of South America and aren't aware of the politics of and environmental implications of technology, I think what we need to understand is everything that's in our phone, everything that's in our computers, in the hospital, all of that is minerals. Those are raw resources. And so we have the old white, wealthy, and violent. So those are the the forest gods, right? Those who came in with building their trains to nowhere except for the crown, out of Africa, out of the Americas, and other parts of the world. They extracted the minerals and the lumber and laid everything to waste, which is part of the reason we have the holy triune of devastation on the continent of Africa, which is tuberculosis, HIV. And the reason we have those is because of environmental destruction. Tuberculosis was not a prominent thing within the continent or a disease of the poor until the arrival of Europeans. And HIV, as we well know from the work of Jacques Pepin, a Canadian physician, is again the result of white European, in particular French, and who comes next, bringing it to the continent in the way that they behaved and allowing it to spread. And so we then have malaria, again, another environmental result, because if we listen to the elders, and I have had the privilege of reading and asking, malaria was not to the degree that it is now. So that holy triune comes from this extraction. And what we have is a war between the old white Europeans and their proxy barren fellows who are also, South Asian, East Asian, and Black, and the new wannabe rich extra rich multi-billionaires who are the gods of, or attempt to be the gods of technology. It's a weird battle because one has to have the other, but they have different ways of ruling. So the old gods, as we know, just wanted to keep us in the regular forms of subjugation that we've been familiar with over the last 500 years. The new tech gods want to do it in a different way. And that way is to track us and cause us to, like a Black Mirror episode, if we're not moving and we're not using their technologies, we're not generating gold coins for them. And therefore they have us on the Twitter, on all of these apps to move and to generate. And every time we tweet, we do anything, we're literally generating gold coins or Bitcoins, according to some folks. So this is about a battle for what this 2.0 colonization will look like. And so when it comes to somebody like Elon Musk saying something as damning and as just like no care in the world, we will coup whoever we want to, deal with it, end quote. And this is because Bolivian people don't want him basically running their country, because why? Bolivia has one of the largest accessible sources of lithium in the world. I repeat that Bolivia has one of the largest accessible sources of lithium in the world. And what do you need lithium for? All that so-called green technology, it's only green for the 10% of the world who will enjoy it in Europe and in the Americas. But it's not green, in fact. It comes out of some dirty mining practices that dig a hole that makes the holes that we see in South Africa and De Beers look like child's play. And that lithium is required for all those Tesla cars, all that space rocket stuff that they want to go and colonize in space and have war in space. And it's also all the stuff that we're being convinced is part of a green revolution, which is not in fact green at all. It's dripping in Black and Indigenous blood. So when we think about Elon Musk, we need to think about, who is he? Like, what kind of white guy is this? Let us remember, he is an Afrikaans. He is an Afrikaner. He is a white South African. That's where their family got their money from. That's where he got his good schooling from. And then in his media remake, he tried to wash himself clean by claiming his little time in Canada somehow made him association with being a Canadian. And then he remakes himself again to be this tech god of America. But the truth is, we're dealing with an apartheid child who was raised with no sense of boundaries, and who has shown us at every turn that that's who he is, and has even advocated for the reinstantiation of indenture. When people said, well, Elon, if you're building spaceships and that's the quote way of the future, and people, that's how they're going to get there, how are people who don't have money supposed to get there if it's quote a necessity, when it would be a necessity? We have to ask that question later on in this conversation. And his response was, well, he basically described the exact same scheme as indenture, which is a different form of enslavement, because indenture only works in particular ways depending on the color of your skin. So Elon Musk begins his family life as white South Africans. He gets the wonderful base of freedom and a sense of no boundaries, high risk taking, no respect for rules from being a white South African. He takes that show on the road, and he knows that there's an odiousness about his white South African roots, which is why he doesn't talk about it, and neither does his mother. And so I find it quite curious when they find themselves on these red carpets acting like they're just regular people. Why don't you talk about who you really are? Because people would find it frightening that these same descendants are doing the same thing, but in a different medium. And so we have to be concerned. We have to think about, what does it mean when one man is comfortable enough not only to attempt to undermine an entire country's democracy so he could get endless supplies of lithium, but he does it again in Brazil just this past year when it was the Brazilian election, by trying to back Bolsonaro, one of the most violent leaders and fascists of Brazilian history at this point, who has literally been identified in numerous sources of the media facilitating an execution program of Indigenous people and Black resistors, including a well-known Black queer woman of Brazilian, I want to say she was fire, fortitude, indomitable. She stood up and she spoke and she did what needed to be done for Black and Indigenous people in the borders of Brazil, and she was executed with a bullet to her head. And Bolsonaro is named in numerous newspapers and numerous investigations as the cause of this, because it's part of a broader plan to subjugate not only the working classes, which are the descendants of the enslaved. And just for folks that don't know these pieces, I'll remind us that the largest population of African descendants from the transatlantic in the world is not America. It is Brazil, followed second by the Caribbean, and third or fourth by America. So it says a lot when the geographies in which indigenous people of the Americas are trying to regain their rights and are ascending to elections and democracy and holding these seats that were once only for white settlers, that he comes in not just once, but twice, because you have to understand the geography of South America. So, you have, Brazil, and then you have Bolivia, and then we have these other countries that he's noted as having thrown his money around in. And so I'm going to leave it there in terms of the backstory, and let you, bring me back in, and I'll weave in other things. And you can find all this. Literally, you can go onto Twitter, and for those of you who are the Twitter search mavens, put in Elon Musk's name in Bolivia, put in Elon Musk's name and Brazil and his work, both Bolsonaro, and you will find a very unpleasant set of facts. And then most importantly, do some digging around, and again, you might need your translation app, the Portuguese speaking and Spanish speaking papers and investigative journalists, and you will be appalled at what you will find. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm going to bring in Sister Nisi to react too. But I want to lift up the appreciation of connecting the dots here. How, again, nothing is ever as it seems, and nothing is ever sort of, just on the surface. Everything is a tip of some iceberg. You got to be looking under the surface for what's really going on. And so the connection between, and this was very in such a talented way that you did that, but really connect how, again, technology is not free. That even the so-called, green tech and everyone wants, climate justice work. And so everyone wants to go green, but we have to always be asking ourselves, at what cost though, right? At whose expense? Like, those are always the questions to be keeping in mind. At whose cost, at what cost, and whose expense, whose back is carrying the burden of these decisions that always feel so nice and great and wonderful, and usually for 0.04% of the world's population. And so really thinking through the ways that the minerals that are utilized for this so-called green technology are extracted from the same places that human labor was extracted, that same place that and continues to be extracted. We know that where basically the locations of colonization, the locations of enslavement, the locations of imperialism, and the list goes on. That many of the conflicts that we know this in many parts of the world, including in the continent of Africa, are because of and facilitated by, again, the need for resources by this part of the world to develop technology, etc., that they benefit from and then sell for profit back to the places from which they extracted these materials. It just keeps going on and on. The very, it's such a contradiction, because the very iPhone on which I am having this conversation right now, Twitter Space, the laptop, that I'm utilizing for the streaming, the components of these technology came from places where conflict is right now being facilitated by these same companies, Apple, etc., to extract coltan and other minerals to create these things. I mean, this is the world that we live in, and so just really naming the ways that these pieces speak with each other, and how the extraction, again, comes at a cost to our planet and to and to nature. And nature, she's a feisty bitch. She's not just gonna lay down and let herself be taken for granted. You disturb balance of nature, you're getting kicked in the ass. And one of the big kicks in the ass, in addition to famine and drought and other consequences of altering nature's balance, is disease. particularly infectious disease, as that ecosystem balance is altered, we are exposed to things that we should not be exposed to, and that nature sort of has taken care of her home in such a way as to protect folks from certain exposures that could hurt us, right? And there's a whole story to be told about COVID and how that first infection occurred. And it's linked to, folks going deeper and deeper and deeper into forests that were supposed to be left alone and now exposed to certain, vectors that carry all kinds of infectious organisms that we have not been exposed to before and definitely don't have treatment for or preventative therapeutics for. This whole business is linked. They're all connected. And really, the first step to dismantling is to understand and to at least bring it up and be aware and have that understanding and have that skill set of connecting the dots. And as we connect the dots, we're better equipped to disconnect them, shall we say. Sister Nisi, what strikes you in what, because Sister Lana said a lot, and what strikes you in what she said? I see you've gone back, okay, to speaking. I know Twitter is funny, but here I'm pulling you back up. Please come back up. There you are. All right. So, Sister Nisi, go ahead. And before you go ahead, I want to just welcome Brother Khalil to the space. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And I see some more folks. Thank you for being here. Sister Denise, Black Anishinaabe, welcome. And a few other folks, including potential trolls. You are welcome too. You might learn something. Who knows? All right. So, Sister Nisi, what did you hear from Sister Lana that struck you? And go ahead and talk your talk.
I think the biggest point that she made was about the man's character, and I think it's something to note in general for the majority of people that we find around us who support fascism and white supremacy and oppression, is that there's no convincing him, like it's not like we're here because we think we're going to get through to him or appeal to him to do the right thing with this platform. But it is important, I think, to understand people's motives, their background, to put things into context. And I think we'll probably see over the next few weeks and months how toxic Twitter can really get. But I think she made a brilliant point about how it isn't just about, he's not just doing this because, he's the world's richest troll. He's doing this because he has ulterior motives that are manifest in the real world that will affect people probably in more vulnerable nations than not, and it'll be for his benefit, which is their family motto. And so I think it's important to start from that perspective, certainly. And also just to think about, I think this particular scenario is just a really great microcosm in a way of how things are unfolding in general in society, in which we're entering this era where we see like a really powerful resurgence of populist fascism. Mm-hmm. So people are definitely okay saying, the N-word with a hard R on Twitter right now. Like, it's almost like no one has any scruples left where it comes to racism. There's so many people who are thrilled that he's at the helm now because they get to take their muzzles off and be the Nazis that they were born to be. And people take pride in that. And so, in as much as we are fighting for disadvantaged peoples, displaced people, we need to understand our opponents. Mm-hmm. They're thrilled that they get to lynch us again now digitally and in real life in the public square. Like, they cannot wait to get back to that. Super bloodthirsty, super death hungry. And it's something that's being celebrated again. And that's where my fear.
Sister Nisi, you sound like you're in the Matrix.
Because
okay, bye.
We think that these people are just trolling on Twitter, but what are they doing in real life? Probably arming themselves. Oh no. Hello?
No, we can hear you now.
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Sister Nisi. Sister Lana, can you hear me? If you can hear me, y'all go ahead and throw up your emojis. Okay, good. All right. Sister Nisi, there you go.
Okay, she's back.
She's back. Okay, Sister Nisi, go ahead. Okay. She may be having she's having some tech issues. That's okay, Sister Nisi. Go ahead and do your thing and come back to us. You said a lot right there, and I just want and I appreciate you for that. I wanted to bring everyone's attention to the Jumbotron. I just put up an article written by the brilliant Bruce C.T. Wright, brother Bruce C.T. Wright, on what the heck is this called again? I'm trying to look at the name of this. It'll come back to me. However, the title is Elon Musk completes Twitter purchase, 5 reasons why Black people should be wary, W-A-R-Y. Here's how Black Twitter users could be affected by the reported $44 billion transaction. And it's a great sort of, brief synopsis of breaking down how this is impactful. And like Sister Nisi was saying, this is not about like changing hearts and minds. This is how we as a people protect ourselves and respond, not react, but respond strategically, intelligently, and collectively in a manner that pushes us forward as a community, right? We're not in the business of wasting time and energy trying to convince people. You already heard who this man is and his folks. So that's not what this is about. But how do we as a people intelligently, collectively, brilliantly, as we always do, respond in a way that protects us and allows us to continue to move forward, to build intelligently and strategically. And that's what this is about. And so this is a wonderful sort of breakdown to really explain to people how this is powerful. And there are different aspects that are that are addressed in this very brief article, a quick read. But the piece I wanted to pull out because it is important, and Sister Lana started to talk about this, right? And the global pieces. This is not just an American issue or North American issue or U.S. issue. It is indeed a global issue. And so the piece that Brother Bruce talks about is the political implications. Okay, and I want to just read this segment and then turn it over to Sister Lana, because I know Sister Nisi's okay. Sister Nisi, I'm getting you back up to speak again. I'm turning over to Sister Lana, and this is the piece that Brother Bruce talks about, political implications, because it does matter. These political implications speaks to policies, legislation, resource allocation that impacts our lives. Not everybody's on Twitter, but who is on Twitter? Journalists and politicians, as well as the rest of us, right? And journalists and politicians, the media and politicians play a huge role in creating and recreating what is society. So it matters. It matters. And so let me read this excerpt. Quote, building off the above sentiments without any accountability in place. And that's, in his previous, I take a pause to mention in what he's referencing above this section on political implications, he's really breaking down the loss of accountability as a major fear. So going back to reading, quote, without any accountability in place, the potential for the aforementioned misinformation, like Sister Nisi said, could run rampant. Twitter is a major part of the political infrastructure now. But without any accountability for mis and disinformation that has been proven effective, it could revert back to its former Wild Wild West-like environment that fostered the type of propaganda that helped hand Trump his presidency. Conversely, Black Twitter and its attempt to highlight political issues affecting our community could be censored, end quote. So this matters, right, in terms of shaping the narrative that informs policy, legislation, the electoral process that leads to who gets in power. And so, Sister Lana was talking about what Ellen did in Bolivia and many other, and in a few other places, right? And we all know how the whole deal with Russian bots and this, that, and the other, and how social media informed and influenced the 2016 election. So we're talking about very real things. This is not just some social media, just, this is very meaningful, right? And so this then leads to questions that our community has been having online. Should we go? Should we stay? And so that's the question, Sister Lana, I want to pose to you. Does Black Twitter go? Do we that do Black justice work, Black liberation work on Twitter, given the political impact of this medium, not just nationally, but globally, as it impacts our lives and influences and informs our lives, living in an unjust, in unjust societies that are run by white supremacism? What is the correct stance to take? Do we go? Do we stay?
Well, so first, I think everybody has a different starting point and location. Some of us are dealing with real material isolation, meaning we may or may not be able to get out of our homes for any number of reasons, such as accessibility, such as finances, such as the safety of neighborhoods as a result of white supremacists, ongoing state-based abandonment of streets, of police forces that are also bankrupt in their targeting of Black and working class people. And so I'm not one to make a statement that doesn't take into account those things. So people will have different reasons and different needs for their attachment to this medium. And for some folks, it's literally the only way that they can connect with other people that understand where they're coming from, especially with the vitriol and violence against non-white peoples in America and in other parts of the world. It's sometimes the only community you have to hang on to. And as environmental disasters worsen, and as people are continually taken out of their homes as a result of inflation, it might be the only way that you can make a shout out or let somebody know where you are. So I'm very mindful of those things. I don't in any way presume that we're all starting from the same place. I am truly blessed. At this point in time, I continue to be able to live in a solid place in a neighborhood, and I got what I need. And in these days of the ongoing apocalypse, that's a lot to say. So I'm mindful of that. For those of us who have more elasticity and more choices and have different opportunities, I think it's important that we really think solidly about how can you actually organize literally inside the belly of this beast. This is not the same as newspaper. This is not the same as news like CNN. And why is that? Because unlike newspaper, print, and we knew that those were ruled by white supremacists, which is why the truth was rarely printed when it comes to the reality of our lives. That's curated, right? Those people are hired, they're employed, like they literally wrote the news that they saw fit to print, and everybody understood that. It also had some rules to play by. And then when we think about televised news, whether it's CNN over our internet or over our regular cable channels, that even also has some kind of rules to it, even though, Fox seems to do whatever they want, and the rest right-wing people who don't abide by the law. But again, it's curated news. There are people hired, and that's produced. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook, this is the thing that is a sticker. We're the ones doing the work and not being paid, right? So we're actually the journalists. We're the ones who are going through, as I am with you today. And at Joma, I've dropped 3 pieces of citation from the media on what I spoke about. So the tweet from Elon Musk during Bolsonaro. I got that from the internet and dropped it in the DM for you, as well as, around Bolivia, as well as the issue around Bolsonaro in Brazil, which is happening right now. It shows that 4 days ago, he's tweeting to undermine the democratic elections of Bolivia because his boy lost. And I also included a link to the New York Times newspaper article where they did a whole expose on Elon Musk and his Afrikaner lifestyle, from which he graduated from the Pretoria's all-white boys' school to come to Canada to go to college. And so again, we're doing the work of newspaper editors, and we're not being paid. And then these companies are being valued at $40 billion, and all they have to do is have a couple hundred moderators, which he's reduced to, I understand, 15, according to newspaper reports. So we went from a couple hundred moderators to manage the vitriol of white supremacy and ignorance down to 15. To the point of what Sister Nicia said. So we are the ones who actually create the value.
And I want to pause you there for a second, because you said a lot of amazing things. I want to pause before we continue. I pull out two things. Number one, this point, I want to reinforce it, that interesting, we actually create the value. Yes. And I put on the, I retweeted this earlier yesterday, and I put it on the Jumbotron from Brother Solomon Missouri, and it's on the dashboard on the Jumbotron, and he tweeted out one of the blackest tweets I've seen in a while, and I'll read it for you. Where are you going if Twitter folds, quote unquote? And he says, I will continue to exist in radical blackness. Do I love that or what? With aunties, food from the side of the road, and people who add S to Walmart. Okay. Wherever the blacks are, that's where I'll be. Okay. He said, it's people that survive Freaknik. Talking about what's next. The same thing you did in 99, light a green apple incense, read 3 scriptures, and drink a Heineken, but this is the piece I wanted to pull out in response to you, Sister Lana. This app wasn't anything until y'all said something. You made it pop. You started the conversation. You started the fire. It's always been you. It's always been us, Sister Lana. Absolutely. We are the value on this app. This app is what it is because of Black Twitter, right? Black communities on Twitter starting powerful conversations that led to real life. I won't say real life is all real life, but offline change, meaningful policy change, created narratives that made news media that informs and influences society today all over the world. Because of the movements of Black Twitter, people knew about the Biafran War, which when Sister Uju Anya said what she said, and Jeff Bezos got involved. All right, people began to know about that. Okay, not everybody's out here mourning the Queen of England just as a recent thing, but there's always so many. For every example I can name, I know each of you can name 10 of what became a change and shift. It was Black folks on Twitter that bring the value. And I just want to really reinforce that for whatever it's worth, whatever we decide as a people, but that we need to all, I believe, agree on that. And I think a lot of people do. The other piece I wanted to lift up was, what you're saying about the, again, the global implications. And it's so important that we understand how all those things connect, together. But I really wanted to emphasize that piece about the fact that we bring the value. And I, of course, I appreciate the intersectionality in your lens, in your analysis of accessibility. And that for some people, this medium is critical because they simply are limited in their options for how to connect or how to express their voice. So I want to appreciate that. And again, reinforce, we are the value on this app. Please keep going. The unpaid value, shall I say. Sister Lana, yes. There you go.
Yes, and I just dropped another link in the DM for you to post, and that one is, and I'm going to tie it together here. So, quote, this is the post. It says, from Business Insider, Elon Musk praised Russian state media propaganda outlets in text and court documents show. And why is that important? Because you have a man who pretends to be an American, but who is actively committing treason, and it's documented in the court. And we know that white America and conservative Black America as perfectly fine with burning down the democracy of America so that they can be fascist and claim that that's American. And so, again, I am no fan of the white settler state of America or any white settler state because it's an environmental disaster. It's a political disaster. It's been a human rights and disaster, as well as just a lot of death over the last 500 years and the last weeks and months, as we can see. And so we've got to be concerned when even the feeble attempts at white liberalism in the form of democracy are being torn down because white people realize, oh my God, democracy, these people are kind of committed to trying to make it work. And we might actually have to abide by law and order. That's not just us killing people. And so the fact that we have been effective in trying to make an unworkable democracy work is still a threat to them because they didn't think it would ever be possible. They didn't think it would be possible for us to wrest the power levers away from them and allow for something healthy to arise out of the lie of democracy that they claim to have written. And remember, the majority of the fathers, quote, of the U.S. Constitution were not only slavers, but were actively raping the women that were in their household that were the African enslaved women, whether we talk Jefferson or any of the others. And so we're talking about a reality when we have Elon Musk, who in U.S. court documents is committing open treason. And let's see how that's handled. And that piece from Business Insider was a September 30th, 2022 article. And so you're going to notice that the sources I'm providing you are not even critical sources. They're just mainstream, drunk the Kool-Aid, mighty, whitey, happy resources. So I'm not selecting out, critical pieces for a reason, to point out that there's nothing hidden about this. Elon Musk is not a mystery to us. Nothing we're talking about here is new. But what I am trying to point out, what has happened is these are all separate reports, and no one has chosen to consistently keep a long thread in the mainstream media on Elon Musk continuously. Otherwise, the Twitter sale would have come under even more speculation. And I'm going to find the link around the SEC. So in order to purchase Twitter, because of the size of the company and the transaction, it falls under SEC rules. And you guys have heard this acronym, SEC, and this is around securities. Anwar, can you remind me? I'll look it up for you, but SEC is for the securities. And whenever you're doing trading and purchasing of major assets. And so he actually broke the rules. And I read an extensive report by people who report on financial mismanagement and financial misalignment with the law. And it's very clear, not only did he break the law, but he set a precedent that will in fact basically turn the finance era even worse than it already is. So it can get worse, meaning they're already breaking the rules and serving each other as they see fit and just pretending there's a modicum of law and order. What Elon Musk did as white South Afrikaners who are pro-apartheid beneficiaries tend to do, and let's not get it twisted, America and Canada are not any different. That's why we still have Indigenous reserves, right? That's why we still have Black enclave neighborhoods. They're not all by our choosing, right? He broke those rules, and I'm going to pull that up. So even the purchase of Twitter doesn't follow the law and set a precedent for a kind of lawlessness of wealthy barons that, quite honestly, many white, comfortable conservatives, even they find it unpalatable. So when we have individuals like Elon Musk behaving in this way, we are talking about a new bottom of the ultra wealthy. Like, it's hit. They say you've gone through the bottom of the barrel. We've gone way through the bottom of the barrel. Let's be clear. If Black people behave this way in regular everyday life, they are doing 20 to life for what Elon Musk is doing in open. If Black people, I repeat, behave the way he has, attempting to overthrow government, including the United States of America, committing treason, they would be doing 20 to life if not shot on sight. And so we're seeing how his white South African roots are showing. And no amount of hair dye can cover this. And to another point I wanted to add in the stuff that's being posted up, the articles also, if you look at these, and this is going to be great for folks that are looking into the nest and pulling them down, is you'll see a trend, not just of lawlessness, but his intention and the language that he uses. And if you listen to his interviews, he basically has said, and not actually quite explicitly in some instances, that his intention is just to basically, rule the planet as he sees fit. And SpaceX is not simply a technological engagement. It is about supreme power. And when Elon Musk is the people that the U.S. government is conferring to facilitate some of their own space program, and that's who Biden is talking to, while the man is actively supporting Russian propaganda, and he is pro-Putin, let's be clear, he said prior to purchasing Twitter, and he said since purchasing Twitter, that he is going to recognize, and this is the work of only countries and nation states. Only countries and nation states that have seats at the UN can recognize countries or not recognize countries. But Elon Musk has now declared, because of his money and his connections, that he's going to recognize Crimea, and he's going to recognize which countries and which countries not. So for Black people, I'm worried about the reality, which is if we stay on this medium, the trolls will be the least of our worries, because the reality is you don't actually have control over your Twitter account. You never did. And so your own Twitter account can be reconfigured. And I want to point out to an example to the Philippines. I'm going to try to pull some up while you switch over. And I'm going to draw a connection here, connect the dots. Her name is escaping me. She's a Filipino reporter. She got the World or Times magazine Reporter of the Year. And they did that for two reasons. One, she's given a hell of a fight against the Filipino fascist dictator that helped bring in and bring the return of the despotic previous government under the one with all the shoes. Why is her name escaping me? Imelda Marcos. So the Marcos family, as you know, terrorized Filipinos, murdered many, and disappeared them, and played a particular kind of despotic role that many have not recovered from in the country. And as many of you may know, 80% of the news in the Philippines is delivered via Facebook, because the entire media has been gutted. When Duarte came to power, he began to manipulate Facebook, and in order to secure not only his election and political power, but also the return of the Marcoses. Now, why does that matter? How does that connect to Elon Musk and Twitter? Well, these have all been experiments, my friend. These have all been Republican experiments, my friend. And so when Duarte used Facebook to bring the entire country of the Philippines to its knees, meaning when he decided that he didn't like certain drug dealers or whatever, it is reported, and it has been substantiated, that over 11 people were murdered in cold blood. He literally just sent his soldiers and police officers into villages, and people were dragged out, shot, and left in the street, to give an example. Right? Sound familiar? Reminds us a lot of what Bolsonaro is doing. Reminds us of what the price they tried to make the duly elected Bolivian president pay by, again, attacking the people who helped organize elections. And many of those were women who were in rural and communities who got out their clipboards and went door to door and helped registered voters, and they were dragged out of their house. Things poured on them, spat on them, yelled at, and then what? Having what? The Twitter and everything put up in their face to broadcast those messages to let people know that if you're going to go for fair elections, you're going to be violently assaulted and shamed, and don't ever try to bring a legal, fair election. And so we connect these two things. We connect this, that Twitter has been a key resource in communicating across the world, across disparate platforms and populations, to come together to do real, tangible, positive work. And it's been recognized as that. And that's why it was purchased. It was purchased because it can do that. It doesn't just do bullshit on Twitter. People do real work. Twitter has gotten it Elon Musk's way more than once. When Twitter broadcasted his conduct in Bolivia, when Twitter activist broadcasted his conduct in Brazil, when they broadcasted his conduct around the wars and his other forms of environmental rapes and human violences, he said more than once that he will fix this problem, and he has by purchasing it. And so it is not, as Ijeoma has pointed out, simply about him purchasing it. He's purchasing it because he wants to decide what the world says and doesn't say.
And really, and that, you know what, that is the bottom line, Sister Lana. I think for this you talked about the nouveau riche, right? The nouveau riche, the new rich folk now, the tech folk, and how they are sort of interpreting and reconstructing wealth and sources of wealth, and what that means, right? Whereas I know you've talked about this before, the old guard was more about being exclusive and restricting access to a number of things in order to maintain their status. This nouveau riche folk are more about, no, let folks have at it, because the more we use and consume and engage and interact, that is producing data, and data translates to wealth for the few people that control the platforms and medium and media that utilizes that data and translates that data to wealth, essentially, for the same very few people. And so to your point, I think ultimately, and for what, to what end? To rewrite the world in their image. Simply to rewrite the world in their image, which is the point that you just made. And I think that is a very powerful point to highlight. And how do you do that, right? That's where the intersectionality of technology or science, the science or knowledge, right? Information meets capitalism and greed, meets politics and governance. And when all these things merge in a beautiful way, as this purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk, the purchase of a platform that is very powerful. And we're just talking mostly in the North American context. Twitter has served very powerful roles in different countries in the world. I remember when the Nigerian government banned Twitter. Oh my God. And I try to make it my business to know what's going on around the world. And I can tell you the number of Twitter spaces that I see every day that is based in different African countries, a lot by Nigeria, a lot in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, a lot in South Africa. This is a powerful medium where people are literally creating their life. They're creating culture. They're creating society. They're creating, meaningful realities that have very real impact on their day-to-day on this platform all over the world. Black folks all over the world, other folks too, but with a focus on Black folks in this space. And so when capitalism and greed meets politics and governance, meets technology, knowledge, information, right, and merges in the ways that it does inside of what we're describing, when an Africana, okay, a product of South African apartheid, right, attains incredible obscene wealth and uses it to purchase a platform that controls narrative, media, and government. What does that mean, right? How incredible is that significance, and the ways that it impacts our lives, and especially those of us that are doing work that runs counter to the agenda of such a person and the people he represents. And so that's what I'm taking away from what you're breaking down, Sister Lana. And of course, we've seen the ways he's fired people left, right, and center. And more recently, there was a tweet from someone in the Human Rights Department. I didn't even know Twitter had a Human Rights Department, baby. But apparently they did. and they've been dismantled, they've been fired, and the person tweeted, I think I retweeted it, I'm gonna put it on the Jumbotron. By the way, y'all, I'm posting a number of links on the Jumbotron for you guys to consume at your leisure. But yeah, right. And the human rights, so you spoke about human rights and his violations of it, and so it's no irony that the Human Rights Department at Twitter headquarters has been dismantled and everyone let go. So again, what is the message that's being communicated, and what is the impact of that, right? So as we think about that, I think many of us and many folks are trying to make decisions as to, again, when we realize we are the value on this app, as we are the value anywhere we are, frankly. Do we leave? Do we stay? If we leave, what does that mean? So where do we leave to, right? What are the other options available? What are the other resources? What are resources to facilitate that? And where are those platforms to migrate to, right? And then what happens when those platforms are bought over by Jeff Bezos or whoever else, right? And if we stay, like the question you asked, what does that mean, and how do we organize within this space? So I've been trying to bring Sister Nisi up, and apparently we're having a lot of challenges technology wise with Sister Nisi, and maybe Elon is interfering, I don't know. But we do have Sister Dr. Day on stage. Welcome, sis. And by the way, you all, the floor is open. I've invited a few people to speak, but if you want to speak, now is the time. I'm giving ample notice, so that we can actually end on time this time around. Okay. So with that being said, you want to say something, you have a question, you have a comment, you have a thought, you have a reflection, you have some, maybe there's some resources you're aware of, go ahead and request to speak and come on. And so with that being said, Dr. Day, welcome to the space. What are your thoughts? Talk your talk. Are you leaving, or are you staying on Twitter?
I'm staying because I don't have another place right now, right? I mean, I don't have another option right now that really gives me any of the breath that I have. But staying and understanding, though, that we know, you know how a company, what it values when you see how it treats its employees. And last night I was talking to a friend of mine who until yesterday morning was a Twitter employee and was on a team that was spread across the country. And we know, right, that there have been layoffs or people have been terminated, but the way that it was done, she's here in California, she was in New York at the time, and was chatting with her teammates. And by time zone, people were discovering that they were locked out of their computers and they no longer had access on their laptops. That was their first indication that they were being terminated. Right? There was no notice. It's just hour by hour during that day, she was hearing from her teammates, I've been locked out. I no longer have access. And of course, they were communicating outside of their work Slack because it was clear to them that, it wouldn't be safe to communicate on their work communications. And so when you have a company, when you have leadership that feels that it is just fine to treat your employees that way, that tells you about their values, that tells you who they are, and that tells you what's to come as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. That reminder about what is the values of a company. When you lack the humanity of honoring people's, again, humanity, right? And just giving basic respect and dignity to the people who work for you. What does that say about what you're going to do with your clients, with your customers? Um, uh, I'm very sorry for your friend holding space and sending love and light to them and wishing her as well as them. I don't know if you mentioned the gender, but and all the people that have opened up and spoken out about their experience with in this change. I'm just wishing all of them love, light, and transition to something greater and more glorious. So thank you for sharing
and
that.
many of them, many of the employees actually, she resigned in solidarity with her, and also resigned because it's very clear that she would never know when she was going to be next.
Right.
So there, not only are people being terminated and fired, essentially, but there are waves of people who are resigning and leaving because of the way it's being done.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to them, because that is not easy. That is not easy, but I appreciate solidarity like that, because that's what it takes, man. Solidarity is sacrifice. Yeah. Solidarity is sacrifice. And we don't make a statement, we don't make change unless we do something big. And that is one of the best acts to show that something ain't right here. Something ain't right here. Sister Lana, you have something to say, and then we'll go to Dr. Pascal.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what was just said in terms of the process. So in tech companies, the walk is as it's known in business, which means when you're going to be dismissed either or terminated, is one that's always done in underneath a secretive fashion, because in the world of tech, the harm that you can do as from the perspective of company owners is that they can't control it because it's technological. And so their justification for this kind of treatment is that, they need to protect the interests of the company. But let's be clear, this is also what we know to be the case. Timnit Gebru, Google already pulled this move. Remember? It was a firestorm, and the documentation is all over the internet, right? And all over proper, formal, old school newspaper articles. Timnit Gebru did not, for those of you who are not in the know, Timnit Gebru worked at Google, and she worked at Google as the ethics person at Google, and she's continental African by birth, Horn of Africa, went to school in the US, has her PhD in computational sciences, and was hired there, and was, in essence, summarily fired without her knowledge in the same way. And the company lied about it. She didn't even know that they had that issue with her, and they had dismantled her ability to communicate with anybody at work, and then proceeded to lie about it when they were embarrassed, on Twitter, because of their inappropriate way of handling the situation. And because her peers who were on her team, her reports, those who reported to her, and her right hand at the office, in their own time, continued to tweet and discuss their concerns about what does it mean when a company simply fires one of the smartest and brightest and most committed people in the world to proper ethics because they don't like a peer-reviewed article written by almost 20 people, on which Timnit Gebru was one of them. Why? Because Google's technology, natural language processing, the very stuff we're using right now, was cited in that article as doing two things. One, it would need to, in order for Google to run just one program, one aspect of its for-profit business in natural language processing, it would take enough energy that would equal the dissolution of the Amazon. So let's just understand how much environmental disaster Google would commit, right? They didn't like that. And number two, she said indigenous languages would be under threat because we'd all be using this app that would be moving us to pretty much being Anglophiles only. This is a scholarly article with some almost 100 references, and Google, who had never paid attention to any of the other publications coming out of its employees. So how much more so for anybody, quote, lower in the rungs? And I'm also going to point you, I dropped another piece in your DM to post around Elon Musk's behavior right now. Elon Musk is in court because what? At Tesla, he has a racially segregated workforce. Okay, the man is in court not once, again. And because he doesn't like the fact that California state has rules, he's taking the whole factory and he's moving it to Texas. And even Texas had to put him in court because he wanted to fire a shit ton of people in one fell swoop. And you're not supposed to do that in Texas once you've got certain, how we say, benefits from the state. So Elon Musk is well known for his anti-blackness. It's literally in the plants that build the fancy cars that I be seeing people driving. It won't be me. He can take that Tesla and do whatever he wants with it. But we know that this man has no respect for workers. And I come back to the fact that when we have a white South Afrikaner pretending to be part of the democratic and free world, we're deluding ourselves. And furthermore to that, we've really got to decide how long people are going to stay. As for me and mine, you won't be seeing me too much at all. Platform. Intro and I talked about it. And so, this is a transitional space. I will be here for a little bit to point you to where I'll be and the better platform to use, my friends, that we seem to have forgotten about because everybody got all fancy. Radio, RADIO. Yes, radio. The thing your mama, your papa, Black people march for all over. We have authority over that. And we're AM. You ain't even got to have money. You don't have to own a $1,200 cell phone. You don't have to own a data plan that comes to an address that you may or may not be able to afford. And guess what? It's the only form of communication that will remain if all comms go down. Why? Because even your safety signal news only comes from AM. Why? Because that's what it was built, because originally radio was designed to communicate when war or civil unrest broke out. So do we have another medium? Yes. Can we be as engaged globally? Yes. And for those of you who may not know about communications and stuff, let me point out to you, ham radio has always been where it's at for Black people. That's how freedom struggles were organized. That's how they used to drop songs on the radio to let people know where they're supposed to be. Long before people had telephones in everybody's house and everybody had their own car. So we have a pathway. Our elders and those who have gone before us in these here Americas have, as we say, have lit their flambeau and taken that torch and given us a way to guide. And that's been the case in Africa, in the Americas, in India. Everywhere radio runs supreme. What they want to do is allow those lines to decay. What they want us to do is not use our landline telephones so that it all falls apart. Who last has seen a goddamn telephone booth, right? And so that we will actually facilitate ripping out the only infrastructure that is in fact owned by the people and is for the people. So there's something called radio. You're gonna find me there. When I finish set up my stuff, we're gonna all be there, and hopefully I'm gonna be able to entice Sister Ijeoma, because from the first time I heard her on the Twitter space, I said, "Girl, you be reminding me about things." And those things reminding me about is when I was sitting here in Toronto in the GTA. We used to sit here and try to tune our dials to the African-American radio stations so we could hear things. Folks used to record radio all over the world. We used to share them on different devices because there's nothing like radio. Mm-hmm. And it is free. Yeah. So we got methods and we got more reach, and it's less segregated. Mm-hmm. Because you don't have to own a goddamn expensive telephone that's killing our kin. The lines have already been pulled out of the ground. The fiber optics are already there. As I say, when it comes to semi-precious stone, I don't want no new stones. I don't want no new black or brown blood on my hand, my neck. I only do vintage because them already dead. Sorry, rest in peace, but I thank you for the work that is gone. So we have radio. Let's not forget, Twitter is a new thing. And like the old folks say, you don't need every newfangled thing that be killing these children when you have what you need. Use your cast iron bloody pan and leave Teflon alone. Let's get back to the radio, leave Twitter and all the white supremacists, because all the people who own Facebook, Twitter, they're all declared white supremacists. What more do we need them to tell us? How many times did they tell us they don't care if we live or die? And how many more times will we line their pockets while they spit on us? Not me, sis. My dad is Councilman Dante James, and he raised me with some sense. May he rest in peace. I hope y'all will join me in the land of radio, and we'll all take up our space. And ham radio's there for y'all that want to ride different airwaves. You even got to do it formal. You want to be a rule breaker? Let's go back to what we know works and leave these people with their bullshit.
All right, y'all heard it from Sister Lana. Radio. And I just tweeted out, and I'm about to put it on the dashboard on the Jumbotron. This is from Black Digital Media 2018, an article written by Samara Lynn, a report. Nope, not the smartphone. Radio is #1 audio platform for Black people. And so a new Nielsen report, well, it was new in 2018. 2018 Nielsen report reveals that when it comes to content platforms, radio is #1 for Black and Hispanic consumers. And so Nielsen's Audio Today report analyzes the audio habits of Black and Hispanic audiences, found over 75 million Black and Hispanic listeners tune into radio each week. That's a breakdown of 92% of Black consumers and 96% of what we call Latinx now, but the article still uses the outdated term Hispanics. There's a little infographic, which I also tweeted out. More than 30 million Black consumers tune into radio weekly, 32 million specifically. And it's just something we really need to take into consideration. And like Sister Lana said, there's an incredible history with radio as a medium for organizing and liberation work that really backs this up. And ironically, even now, it still is apparently #1. Now, I would try, and I want to encourage, because this is a community of scientists too, right? If y'all find something more recent, go ahead and share that. But this is an article from 2018 that showed at the time, it's recent enough, right? That's what, 4 years ago, radio as #1 platform for Black folks. Again, we have to remember that not most of us are not on Twitter, right? That's something that is said often. Most of us are not on Twitter. Enough of us are, clearly. Right? But most of us are not. So it's important to think about how do we reach out and captivate those that are not here, but also think through again. And Sister Lana, I'm going to swing back to you after we hear from Dr. Pascal. But, again, noting that Twitter is still, even if we all go to radio, Twitter is still going to be here. And it still is a government informing, media informing, society influencing platform. And so what relationship, if at all, do we have or not have with this app, even if we all migrated off it? I also want to talk through, for those who choose not to, folks like Dr. Day, who gave her reasons, what are some approaches to organize within it, if any. So I want us to kind of sit with that again, inviting folks to come on and share your thoughts on these questions. And I'm about to pin this article about radio and Black folks in a second. And also, by the way, pinned an article about Timnit Gebru from Google, from Wired. That story, for those who may not be familiar with her story, you can check out that article to get updated. That's the sister that Sister Lana referenced when she was talking about Google. And again, the through line through these tech companies and what they stand for. So with that being said, Dr. Pascal, the floor is yours. Talk your talk, and welcome. Always good to see you.
Hi, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that Twitter will always be here. I mean, I'm in the lab right now, working with students, and I did ask them, like, would you consider going to radio to learn things, about politics? And literally they were like, no. And we're talking like, young adults and basically the future of this country, right? And so I think Twitter may not be the place where we want to stay, but we definitely, I think we have to think radio may be one option, but it probably will not target the youth unless we do some sort of advertising or whatever. But the reaction was a bunch of no, I don't think so, Dr. J, right? But what I was thinking about was this new wave, right, in the among STEM educators and scientists, this idea that we're gonna move to Mastodon and stay basically among scientists. And I wonder what people's take are on that, because to me, it's a disservice, right? Because at least I've been on Twitter just since 2019, not for a long time at all. And I found that it was a good place to do science communication, and to also sort of like bring our science to people who are not in the field, right? To try to help explain like the COVID vaccine, how it works, to people who, don't have anybody to really explain those things to them in ways that they understand. So I don't know. I guess I want to hear a thought about this idea that, let's all move to Mastodon to have our scientific community. Personally, I find it exclusionary, and I think it will be another like elitist attitude, right? Where it's like, what are we doing the science for? Is it for ourselves or is it for others? So I just wanted to ask like what people thought about that idea of leaving Twitter and, basically not doing the part of what I call my social responsibility with my work. I don't know. That was my question. And I really hate that Elon Musk is doing what he's doing. I don't understand how we allow people like that to get to where they are, to the point where they can just disrupt society with no consequences. And it's just sickening, But anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, sis. I think that's a great question, and I see that Sister Nisi's back. Yay! The devil, we never let the devil win, right? So I think that's a great question for to sort of pivot to Sister Nisi, and then we'll hear what Sister Lana has to say. Thank you for doing right there and then a poll in real time with the young people to say, hey, would you consider moving to radio? And I agree with you. I think it can be one approach. And we are a multi-dimensional people, and we are a multi-pronged people, and nowhere do we say there is this way and the only way, but it can be one way. However, who are we leaving out of that, and who do we not reach as a result of that decision? And I hear you when you say, could it potentially be exclusionary itself, and how then do we integrate? So I appreciate that question. Sister Nisi, do you have a response for Dr. Pascal, if you're able to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome back.
The devil is a lie. That was Elon, I'm telling you.
That's what I'm saying. I was just listening. That's what I'm saying, but he ain't gonna win.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that a lot. A couple of our partners have, platforms they're trying to build and things like that. And honestly, we have a weekly radio segment on Sirius XM called Routine Checkup with Hood Magician. And when we were, trying to figure out our reach or whatever, like basically, that station gets more, listenership than like the average cable news channel. So I would agree that Black people, probably older, like maybe 20s and up, maybe 30s and up, are into radio, depending. I mean, this is like Black Talk Radio, so, and it is very interactive. So I do agree that in some instances, radio can be a bigger platform than we probably think. I think it's hard because even for like me, for example, like, I think more or less Facebook is kind of obsolete in my life, but I still keep it because so many people won't give it up. So it's like a way to like connect with some of my peeps. So it's like, I think it's going to be difficult because I think we've seen a lot over the past several years of people trying to branch off and build their own platforms, but it's hard to get people to come when everybody's already on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. So it's difficult. I don't know. I mean, I definitely think because of the lack of restrictions and just the kind of Wild West free-for-all, he's probably going to make it. In some ways, that will help us be more subversive, using that platform to progress like different social justice initiatives and to reach our people, etc. It might be more difficult, like I said, to do some of the analyses of how Twitter's used and, you know, how misinformation gets spread, for example. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of evolves. But yeah, it is difficult. I mean, it's hard because like some of us still haven't need a good reminder about the utility of a boycott. I think a lot of people don't understand the power of a boycott and probably don't understand their own purchasing and buying power and what that, for that matter, their own political power, and what that means to kind of be intentional about what platforms you support and utilize. And I think it's probably time to remind people what boycotts are like and why they work. But it kind of depends on what our overall aim is and what we're communicating to people, because I think everyone in general kind of knows that Elon Musk is, you know, the quintessential like kind of supervillain, but he's almost a caricature in some ways, which in and of itself is wildly successfully subversive because he is an existential threat. Mm-hmm. And most people think he's a joke. So it's kind of, you know, and a matter of trying to help people understand his real impact in the world, if we're focusing on him specifically. And for that matter, maybe all of the white supremacists who are enjoying a new heyday right now, because we've gotten into this habit of sort of making them a joke because we spent so many years ridiculing Trump for his presumed idiocy, which doesn't seem that stupid to me, but and it kind of dilutes the threat that they present to our democracy, to our society. So we need to like damn the jokes and be serious about who these people are and what they're doing.
Oh no, I thank you for saying that. I think that is absolutely on point. Yes, it is not a joke. This is not a joke at all. And two things that you said I want to pull out. One is that yes, you can't. You know, I don't know. He may be an idiot. He may be a joke, etc. You know, but somehow somebody gave this man billions of dollars. You know, he is worth billions of dollars by whatever measurement is utilized. So he joked his way or he idiotified his way to billions of dollars. So, you know, so no, I think that is so important that we have to take this serious. And I think that is linked to your point around us educating ourselves to build the awareness of what these things mean. A lot of you know, why I find this roundtable so critical and important, why I continue to do this work, because every day I'm reminded that more and more of us need to learn how to ask the right questions and how to look beneath the surface. You can't just take things as surface. That's not how the world works. And like they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. If you don't know what aguan, like our Caribbean brothers and sisters say, our siblings say over there, you know, if you don't know what aguan, baby, you are on the menu. You are on the menu. And so being able to understand and assess and ascertain, and like you use the word intentional, being wise and intentional with an understanding of how do I move in this world, whether I'm online or offline, the decisions I'm making, what I purchase, what I put in my body, how I feed my family or support my family, the education of my children or the children in my life, the choices I make every day, how I vote, who I vote for, wherever we are in the world, how we make these decisions, the intentionality is so critical, and how we make those decisions is informed by our ability to be critical, right? To have the critical, reflective, and critical analytic tools to inform how intentional we are on these decisions, because each of these choices have consequences. That's the bottom line. It has consequences. And although capitalism will lead us to believe that those consequences affect some people out there somewhere far away, that's not you. The reality of the truth is that we are all connected, and it affects each and every single one of us some kind of way, right? Because we're all like, how many degrees separated at the end of the day? A couple. And more these days, at some point they used to say 6 degrees. In 2022, it's like 1 degree. We are all super connected. What affects you affects me. I don't care where you are at. You could be in the middle of the Amazon. Baby, whatever is going on with you, I'm going to count 1-2 weeks. Boom. It's going to impact something in my life, and vice versa. So the understanding of our connected destiny and the fact that these decisions matter, and these technology that, like Sister Lana has said, without pause, they all have costs. They all have costs. They have costs to our environment, to our world, that then impacts our exposure to disease, that impacts our exposure to resources, that impacts our exposure to the ability to build wealth or poverty, right? They're all interrelated. They're all interrelated. And so the more we build our capacity to connect these dots and ask the right questions to derive the appropriate answers, the more informed our decisions can be, our choices can be in every aspect of our lives, to be meaningful and intentional, so that we can minimize negative consequences for ourselves, our communities, and our worlds. It matters. Our children, whether they come from our bodies or they are children in our communities, but our collective children, this is it impacts them. It impacts us now. We're seeing the results, the consequences now, but it's 1 billion%. What kind of ancestor do I want to be? Right? So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I also wanted to lift up this piece and then move to Sister Lana. And before I do that, again, y'all, lots and lots of resources are being posted to the Jumbotron, to the dashboard. Please avail yourself of them. Follow everybody in this space. Everybody here is amazing. Want to welcome back Sister Modern Maid, Sister Adieu. Want to welcome back Brother Kennedy Wandera, who's doing amazing, outstanding job in journalism. Just appreciate him and his spaces. Want to welcome Dr. Arnaldo Diaz Vasquez. Thank you for all the work you do as well. Oh, my dear brother Antoine, thank you for being in the space. Sister Paula, I see you as well. Welcome. So just welcome to everybody. Thank you. I see you. Sister Janelle, welcome to this space, and the list goes on. So thank you again for making the time. You can catch up with, if you go to the Jumbotron and scroll through all the resources that we've been sharing, number of links. And again, don't forget to ping folks into the space and hashtag AMART and all that good stuff. But we will be rounding up at 3 because we are working on being respectful of time. So with that being said, I really wanted to lift up this other point, Sister Nisi, and that is a reminder that, yes, we're talking about Elon Musk, but really as an avatar for an entire system and structure. Remember, we are system oriented here. We're structurally oriented here. He is not just by himself doing what he's doing in a vacuum. No, he belongs to a wider context, a wider structure of the world, right? We've talked about how capitalism is intersected here, greed, governance, and politics, and how it leads to, consequences for the daily man, woman, and non-binary person in the world every day. We've talked about how Twitter doesn't just matter from I ate some sandwich and it upset my stomach, but this platform informs, it includes that, absolutely, but it informs policy and narratives that influence society and governance and politics, legislation that shows up in our lives, right? And so it is not a joke, going back to Sister Nisi. It is not a joke. It is not a joke at all. This man represents an entire system and structure of how the world is sort of trying to be. But again, things don't just happen. We make them happen by resistance, right? By action or passion. I like to say, activity or passivity. Either way, we make it happen. And so I just want to lift that up. So with that, Sister Lana, you have your hand up, and I know it's tired from being up so much, but y'all, you want to speak, please go ahead. It's your time to request. Would love to hear. This is a very big topic, and it affects all of us. We're trying to determine, do we leave, do we stay? If we leave, where are we going, right? And if we stay, what does that mean? How do we move? How do we navigate? How do we organize? That's what we're determining now. We'd love to hear from you. And you don't have to have an answer. You could just talk, just like Sister Pascal, who is still massaging some thoughts. And she offered some questions. And so, Sister Lana, please go ahead.
Yeah, so should we go or should we stay? We all know where I'm going. I'll be going. I march, I walk, I protest with my life, not just with my words and with my keyboard. And I think it's important to remember that none of what people are hanging on to, and I'm going to be, critical here, and I'm going to ask us to challenge ourselves. Nothing that you have in Twitter or Facebook or any of that is natural. Every single one of those people got a ring put through their nose and decided that they were going to put all their details for someone else to mine and become a billionaire. I can guarantee you, and I've asked Black people, if you knew that putting all your information into Facebook and tweeting was going to make a bunch of white men and their partners multi-billionaires that would then put you out of work and change the entire political context of your neighborhood to the point where your person non grata doubled over, would you have done that? And they're like, well, of course not. And yet we are here. So I'm just going to ask people to give their head a little bit of a shake and understand that by staying, we continue to line its pockets. And no, Twitter will not always be here any more than MySpace is always going to be here. And Facebook is almost like MySpace. Like, who actually uses that thing anyways? So we do have a lot of antiquated technologies, and people, if somebody produces a printed phone book, yeah, our addresses and phone numbers will be there, but doesn't mean anybody actually uses it. So, and that's what they tried to convince you about, radio and different other technologies that we've already won the right to have and already paid the environmental price for their extraction. And to this question of Mastodon versus Twitter, honey, this is a world of apartheid. Twitter is not being used by everybody. Let's not even pretend. The average income of people using Twitter that hold the majority of the platform, how those voices mainline, get blue check marks, that's all class and geography based. Twitter is not evenly distributed around the world in its accessibility, nor in its language use. So let's not continue to create the mythology that these platforms are accessible, that they're everywhere, and that they're doing everything. They are not. They're doing what we allow them to do. So apartheid and segregation on Twitter as an instrument is a thing. It's always been a thing. And it's okay if you go off to Mastodon because Twitter's segregated anyway. So let's not pretend that it's this open platform. And yeah, do people use it in different ways? Sure. But let's not pretend it's everybody, and let's not pretend it's doing more than it is. And the other piece is, when it comes to boycott, thank you, sis, for bringing that up, because none of us would actually be on this platform together in all of our rainbow realities if our ancestors didn't use boycott and had some backbone and had some commitment to a long-term outcome. And no, Twitter cannot continue to exist, particularly if the most engaged content makers leave. It's a content-driven platform. Understand the business model, people. We're not just saying you make Twitter. Without your content, there's no Twitter. If people decide to do a rolling boycott, like they do rolling blackouts, you would find that you could discipline things. And let's be clear. White people have gone out of the way. They went and got Brazilian asses, which are ours. They go get their lips plumped. They go get their skin tanned. They get their hair cornrowed. They put on their red lipstick. They learn how to bubble, wine, do everything from every Black part of the world. So they've been following us. We've transformed Twitter, literally. Twitter was not the thing it is now until Black people took it over. Same with TikTok. So y'all can keep lining people's pockets. I ain't gonna stop you. White people gonna welcome you. But don't get it twisted. You know this thing because you made it a thing. And no one's going to be here unless you're here. And yes, will there be holdovers? But yeah, you have your Facebook page. Most of Facebook now is like parking lot. That's why he had to go to Metaverse, honey. Why do you think he has a problem with WhatsApp? Because I was on the other apps that were in use, because I came off WhatsApp majorly. I only use it for a few people. When boyfriend Zuckerberg took over WhatsApp, they literally broke Signal and Telegram because people had enough sense to move, because they had wrapped their identity up in their WhatsApp. But people have wrapped their identities up in Twitter. And I would actually challenge a number of activists and organizers. How dare you claim that when our ancestors never relied on white men and women's inventions of vice to be the channels under which we free ourselves? It makes no sense. Every time we move onto a platform, we know it's a time limited. You won't find me in those places because I know what time it is. You won't find serious act organizers. I'm not saying if you're here, you're not serious. Let's not go all there. Because you know these are time limited. These are not ours. These are military devices designed to monitor and surveil us. The FBI and CIA spend all kind of money getting up in our neighborhoods, in our kids' schools, in our lunchroom. But now they can save money on the budget because they're all up in our Twitter conversations. So we all know, if we're serious organizers, that this is not a thing. It's a play thing. It's a fun thing. But please let me not ever understand that this is the thing. So radio, the reason kids don't know about radio is because they don't know about a whole lot. The same kids you polled, I can guarantee you, they probably get driven to school. So I think it's important to understand that the kids know about, right? I'm just being honest. Come on, right? Like we kids know about what we know about because the people we're around create an open space for us to know about things. Right? Because we have different things. I know a whole bunch of music that is absolutely romantic and wonderful that is not from my generation. And half these kids can't even slow dance because they don't even know what the hell it is. But when they get exposed to it, they're like, oh, that's so cute. So all kinds of things, because people who use Twitter, people who say I wouldn't use radio are people who are followers. So people just need to lead. Remember, people who make those statements are followers. They're not the leaders. And I want to remind us, for those of you who paid attention, for those of you who know the archive, there was a guy named Ashton Kutcher. He was in a relationship with a girl named Demi Moore. Demi Moore is older than...
We lost you. Okay. Can anyone hear Sister Lana? If you can hear me. Oh, there you are. Lana?
Yeah,
Lana? All right. Can you hear my voice? Throw up your emojis. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, Sister Lana, we lost you for a bit. So while you're coming back on, I do want to pull up, just want to lift up a couple of things. What I heard from that is we need to know our power. We need to be reminded of our power. And like we said earlier on.
Like, that's what people don't understand. Like, when you talk about boycott, we are legion. We're Black Twitter. Period. Like, we made a whole segmentation of the platform that drives the innovation and engagement of people across the globe. So we could, like she was saying, lead a movement away from this bitch. Like one Black Twitter legion.
And I appreciate that so much. I have, Brother Wandera, you're on, Brother Kennedy, Wandera, you're on, and you represent different part of the world, VOA. And again, Sister Jew is here too, representing a different part of the world. I really want to hear what, we are standing in our positionalities that we are in the United States. Sister Lana is in Canada. So we're in North America. But how would this impact our siblings in other parts of the world? You know, are we, to what degree are we coming at this conversation from a place of privilege, geographic privilege? I'm just wondering about that. It may not mean anything. It may not have any impact, but I would really love to hear from folks in the space who are based out not in the US or North America, to just kind of speak on how this lands with you in where you're at, because so many things, so many things. So I really hope that you, if you are in this space and you're based outside of the US and Canada, that you come on, because your perspective is critical. You know, we talk about Blackness, you know, globally. I did want to lift up something. I found this, I think I put it on Jumbotron. This is from Statista. Statista is a stat, you know, shows all kinds of data. This is from 2021, and it shows data about the weekly radio reach among African Americans in the United States by age and gender. So just kind of thinking with Dr. Pascal's students, and just as far as African Americans are concerned. So age 12 to 17, like who is being reached by radio, right? Age 12 to 17, 68.3%. You know, they have a section for just 12 and over, 12 plus, 81.7%. You know, are reached, and the breakdown between men and women are about the same: 80.9 for men and 82.4% for women. That is a significant chunk of people in 2021. So this is a little bit more recent than the 2018 data, but seems to kind of hold up, right? Age 12 to 17, the youngest, 68.3%. Reached, you know, that, which is much higher than I would imagine for that age group in 2021. 68.3 is over half, way over half, right? Almost 70% of teenagers, Black teenagers, receive information through the radio. 18 to 24, 75.8. So that's 3/4, or more than 3/4. You know, then let's go to the older folks. I mean, it's no surprise. 35 to 64 years of age, 86.7%, almost 88%. It doesn't really change that much at the end of the day. So it sounds like, at least among Black folks in the US, regardless of age, radio is a pretty dependable medium. Dr. Pascal and the rest of us that are learning this as well. So I'm just really curious about that. Dr. Pascal, in the students that you polled, what percent would you say are Black or African American? Would you say that? What would you say?
One.
Okay, one among roughly.
Real poll, right? It was just
No, of course. We don't have to. Come on now. We know we're just talking here. We know it's not real, like, you know, what you call them, poll people. Anyway, yeah, it is not a real survey here. But you know, as you know, dirty as I call it dirty surveys, but really informal is a better word. As it is, it just gives us some kind of idea. So I'm just curious about that, and I haven't looked at, you know, what it says for white Americans, but apparently for African Americans and Latinx Americans, radio seems to still be a reliable tool, regardless of age. And so that's just a very interesting piece for us to just sort of add to our arsenal, to our toolkit, right? To our overall toolkit. So thank you for that. I'm so glad you did that, Dr. Pascal. That opened up a really rich conversation. Anybody else want to come up to speak? We lost Dr. Lana for soon to be Dr. Lana for a little bit. I know she's getting her connection together, and we'll be right back. We have a few minutes that's open, and especially would love to hear from folks who do not live in the United States and Canada, to share what your thoughts are on how this lands with you. And, you know, does this have different impacts, influences, where based on your geographic location and or your positionality, period? Does it matter? Would really love that, but it's open to anybody. Anybody can come up to speak. Dr. Pascal, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just was going to say, I think I guess I appreciate her Lana's perspective, in that, you know, at the end of the day, we can lead, right? If, let's say, it's radio where we want the student to go, or the young people to go, there's a way we have to be proactive about it.
Mm.
I guess I'm just wondering how we can still use the platform that most of them are comfortable with, right? I understand that, it seems like a lot of them are on the radio, but then the question is, what are they on the radio for, right? Because you can be on the radio listening to music versus being on the radio listening to politics or to things like that. So can we use podcasts? Can we use, you know what I mean? And so that, like it's what are they doing on the radio? And we have to keep that in mind as well. But I do agree.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. So I do agree that, like, at the end of the day, the fundamental question is, if we stay on Twitter, how do we educate, how do we reach the people that we want to reach? If we decide to go, where are we going, and are we able to achieve the same impact that we were achieving on Twitter? Because for all the crap that is on Twitter, I'm not gonna lie, I've had a lot of opportunities through Twitter. I met a lot of people through Twitter. I reached a lot of people through Twitter, and so it really pisses me off when I think about this idiot. But my thing is, what would be the best strategy? Like, if we have to strategize, like, what will be the best strategies for us to continue this work without having to reinvent a wheel, or to try to make people adapt to a whole new system from what they're already used to?
Yeah.
That's my thing.
And I think that's a great question. I do. I think that those are excellent questions. And part of our goal with this conversation today was to just get us to start asking the question, right? We're certainly not going to necessarily unpack and all of that today, but we can start the conversation by at least starting with the question. And then from there, and my hope is that this conversation continues as we close out the space and we are continuing with our day and our week and the days and weeks ahead. And I would love for you to tag Amart and tag each other to start having that conversation. What like Dr. Pascal said, what does this all look like for us? If you're going to stay, what does that look like? What does that mean? What are the tools to still organize effectively despite the changes that we are dealing with from Elon and his folks, right? That still protect us, preserve us, and allow us to build. And if we're leaving, well, what is the strategy for that? Where are we going? And how do we ensure that we're impactful on that platform, regardless of, the challenges that may come with that? I always say we got to build our own. And I know many people have talked about that, and Sister Nisi is talking about that. And there's a lot that goes into that. And we know that it comes with certain limitations, but, again, how do we ask the right questions so that we are problem solving and building, as opposed to dwelling in a scarcity and lack mindset, right? So let me just check on Sister Lana to see where she's at before we close out. But Sister Nisi, while I'm doing that, just want to invite you to share any last words. Is there anything you wanted to say that didn't come up? And again, inviting folks, this is the last call for alcohol. You got something to say, want to invite you. This is the time to request now as we're closing out. But Sister Nisi, what are some last words you want to offer? And I really want to talk about some of the pieces that Dr. Pascal brought up around, if you can, reference those, just what does it mean? Where, if we're going to leave, where to, and if we're going to stay, how do we organize, as you share your last remarks?
My last remark is just to get ready. I mean, this Twitter issue is just a reflection and one part of the great challenge we all face in this era that we probably don't really understand as fundamentally as we need to. And that's, our time might be up. When you say, is it time to leave and where do we go? My first thought is in the world, because we're not safe here physically in America. And I that's the thought I would want to leave with everyone, is to think about how well armed they are, how intentional they are, how many facets of our life on a daily basis that they permeate. how excited they are about the new wave of hate speech, racialized violence, fascism, nationalism here and across the world. Nazis have a seat in parliament all over Europe now. We need to take this shit seriously, because we're not just talking about our our digital identities, but our very personhood, our very existence is what is at stake. Not just with Twitter, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is what it is. They are going to take over spaces and be super loud and call us the N-word with the hard R. And what the fuck are we going to do about it anyway? And that's the threat to our very lives. They can shoot us in the park, or bird watching, or jogging, or a kid playing with a toy anytime they want and get away with it. It's impunity. Like, when we're talking about fucking Twitter, fuck Twitter. Like, they could just lynch us again in the street and everybody's cool with it. And we know that. So get ready. If you're going to be serious about it, then you would be serious about considering, would we actually leave and where would we actually go? Because we don't want to be commercialized for our own destruction. That's crazy. We're the cog in the wheel of the machine of our own destruction. Fuck that. So get ready, I guess, is my call to action.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Just heads up with that. And I'm looking for Sister Lana. It seems like we have lost her for a bit there. And, God bless Canada. But, sometimes their Wi-Fi there is something else. And let me just check WhatsApp real quick, see if she has sent me a message. I don't see. And I'm checking DM. I don't see either. So no worries. I think that this is a good place to round up. And again, thank you all for joining us here at AMART. There's been a number of resources that are shared on the Jumbotron. So while I'm closing us out with the summary, just to direct your attention there so that you can help yourselves before we close out. But this has been really invigorating. I have learned so much, and thank everybody for your participation, for your questions, for your comments, for your thoughts that are very engaging. We had a real-time poll that was done. that was amazing. Great questions that were really brought forth to challenge us to be more intentional and to be more knowledgeable and aware in the choices that we make, understanding that these events that happen in the world impact us in very intimate, powerful ways. It impacts our families, our neighborhoods, our communities. It does. And so a platform such as Twitter that has it's part of the political infrastructure throughout the world, not just here in the States or in North America. It is, journalists are on here, media folks are on here, politicians are on here, decision makers, policymakers. And these are the people that inform, influence, and weave the narrative that is society. So it is critical, right, that we understand the impact when a person that has identified as, and has shown all the signs and symptoms consistent with white supremacy, from Africans, apartheid background, and has supported and been integral in oppressive governments, purchases with the wealth that we allowed him and people like him to amass. By the way, billionaires are a symptom of a society that has lost its way. And so, that and purchase a platform such as this, there are concerns that are very valid that people have, especially people who belong to communities that are historically and currently excluded, disenfranchised, and oppressed. So it is very fair that we are having meaningful conversations amongst ourselves. What does it mean to organize on these platforms? What does it mean to create our own platforms? What does it mean to, to name these systems of oppression and violence in the midst of those that are invested in upholding those very same systems, right? And so we've learned today how to ask key questions. We've learned today to connect the dots, to understand what is behind the scenes, to understand that what is happening in point A affects what's happening in C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and number 10. Okay, that we're all interconnected and interdependent. To understand that this is a serious matter. It's not something to joke around and make fun of. This is very serious. It impacts lives in meaningful way. Like Sister Nisi said, it is not just a digital lynching that occurs. Those digital lynchings lead to and are connected to real life lynching. We have numerous examples of those over the years. We've talked about the global impact of this reality here. We've talked about how our choices need to be informed, right? Well informed, because these choices have consequences that impact us and our collective community. And one of my favorite key points is this reminder of our power, that ultimately we are the value on this app. We are the value on this platform. We are the value on all the platforms, frankly. Okay, wherever we are, we add incredible value because Black folks are brilliant, are eloquent, are well-read, are well-informed and grounded and creative, innovative, funny, simply hilarious. Even in the midst of pain, we somehow figure out a way to just crack the hell up. It's part of why we've survived this long. We know we have the skill set of building community. We're able to see what others cannot see and bring to reality what others did not even conceive of. We are a powerful people. Okay. And so knowing and be reminded of our power so that we can strategize and be intentional because we indeed are the value is one of my most favorite points from today's conversation. So as I always say, that's a good way to lean into our take-home points, which is love yourselves, love each other, build community, and build power. Know your power. Know our collective power, know your individual power, and walk in it. Whatever your choice is, to stay, to leave, to build your own, or whatever it might be, know your power, brother. Know your power, sister. Know your power, family, and operate in it, okay? In tandem with each other, Ubuntu community. I am because we are, always. And that is my biggest takeaway. Now, Sister Lana has joined us, so I want to give her a minute or less to just round up, give some final thoughts, and then we'll close out. Sister Lana, any last words for the people? And remind us again about radio.
I want to encourage us to remember about radio, and I want to also say thank you to everybody for their varied views and perspectives. But I'm hanging with you tight, Nisi. And to get ready means to have a method and a medium in which to communicate. Because I always ask people, so what do you do when all comms go down? Do you have a plan? Do you even have a walkie-talkie set to be able to communicate with your own family if you had to go in different directions to find safety? So do get ready. And don't confuse the radio thing that you dial. People, you can use radio on the same cell phone, but you can also use radio on a regular transistor radio. So most people don't realize just how much radio is being used because you confuse the fact that it has an internet app face with the radio actually being gone, right? So that's actually how most music still hits, quote, the billboards. It's still by radio. It's just a lot of people have confused the fact that they're listening to radio through their phone with not realizing it's still the radio that they grew up with, right? So I think that's also a piece I want to remind folks of, and that there's consequences to choosing to stay, and the consequences, you have to decide if they outweigh the benefits, but there's also something called accountability and responsibility. We may love the fact that we have global communities. We may think about things as geographic privilege, but the reality is that these are not privileges that we've all come to fairly. And so while this allows us to connect to Tanzania, to South Africa, to Chennai, to Burma, to these chemicals that are in our phones that we use are also poisoning us globally simultaneously. And we have a responsibility to be our own savior. We're the ones we've been waiting for. And if that's the truth, then we have to stop poisoning ourselves and deluding ourselves into thinking we have a kind of connectivity and a closeness that we haven't actually earned, but we've been forced together so that they can see how we play. Like, this is all a giant laboratory, all these technologies, right? They want to see what happens. And then they take us away. So if we want to make them gods, they will behave like gods. and it says that you're not supposed to have, foreign gods. But yet their names are Twitter, and their names are Zuckerberg, and their names are Gates. And we talk about them, but we got to be about it, not just talk about it. And I'm with Sister Nisi on that. And I really want to encourage us to think about what radio can do, to learn about ham radio, to learn about AM, FM, to learn about how that works in your neighborhood, to learn about the ways in which people have connected across the globe, where some channels end, because there's range and others begin. And so if radio's not a thing, why does Sirius exist? Yo, people, that's radio. So how do we keep it free? And how do we keep it accessible? And how do we think about multiple methods? I have no issue with that. But how do we make sure that those methods aren't adding to the very problems that we have? Because that's always the solution in the violence of capitalism. They'll always give you something new and shiny and tell you, oh, try this, when they know damn well that's killing us on the back end. So it's relationships that make connectivity. And yeah, I wouldn't meet half of y'all if it wasn't for this application, but I'm confident I would have still met you eventually, because communities of people who do things meet each other. And we meet each other because we are making impact in the real material world, on the real ground. And that's how we connect, right? Digital connection is one thing, but when I need people to vote in my neighborhood, I got to live in my neighborhood. If you need people to change who the president is, they need to vote in the real world. That's why they're trying to get you to the metaverse. So you ain't got nothing to vote for, and you ain't got nothing you can change. You just got to ride whatever they give you, and that's called prison. So we're in a state of global carcerality, and you just got told the warden turned into an even meaner SOB, and Twitter was barely civil before. And like Nisi said, this is going to be a license to kill. People will be doxxed on Twitter. They will be using this information. And I want to just drop one last fact before I go. Somebody can go and pull it up. And we can see this around the world. Investigative journalists have documented repeatedly over the last 5 years, and particularly over the last 10 years, we've had a hard shift to the right from Hungary. And that's a key word. I want you to go look at the Vice report on Hungary. And we've seen it in Europe. We've seen it across America. In Canada right now, our premier in the province that I'm in is the equivalent of a Republican. And he has met with the Hungarian president, who gave you, here we go, coming right back to Sister Nisi, who gave y'all country the playbook to shut down abortion, and who is rolling out the playbook in Hungary in America. They actually have an exchange with Harvard and Stanford and all of your Ivy League schools and not so Ivy League schools, so they can learn how to be white supremacists. And Hungary has a wonderful policy. As long as you have at least 4 children and you're a white woman, you pay no income tax for life, because they want to ensure white Hungarian race. And there's a whole lot else going on in that country that America is trading with. And do know that Donald Trump and both the president and premier of Hungary are actively involved in your country's politics. And guess what? Guess who's friends with Elon Musk? You got it. The people who just got rid of your abortion laws. So I say all this to say, radio, whatever, we come up with new things all the time. I think of radio as that place where we can hang out together and give time to all our Black creatives, including myself, because I've been working on something, but we can only do so many things at once, to buy the time to come up with the platforms, because we need to raise our platforms and take them down on demand. We need to be able to boycott and pivot. That's why they want predictive technologies, because we, my friends, are so goddamn unpredictable. All they can do is scrape data to try to figure us out. So we're unpredictable. Let's stay that way. I will see you on the radio. Take care. Peace out.
Yes, we are so goddamn unpredictable. Yes. And so I want to, first of all, shout out a couple of people who sent me messages before we close out. One is Sister Janelle, who's in a busy airport. I don't know if you're still there, sis. I'll check in a second. But she wants to remind us not to look down our nose at MySpace, because, before all these other platforms, Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, began to monetize our content. Our content was shared and respected on MySpace. So I just want to, she wants to remind us of that. And she says, if we are rescheduling a tech regentrification, where are we collectively going? So this is what we're discussing currently. But she certainly wants to remind us about that MySpace wasn't no joke. It wasn't for play, y'all. Put some respect on MySpace. And I want to shout out Dr. Paula. Dr. Paula is going to be on the radio tomorrow, actually. So a shout out to the sis who's going to be doing big things on the radio. And I'm really proud with Sister Nisi. Like she said, they have a great partnership on Sirius FM producing weekly content, which she has involved myself and Sister Lana in. So, there's a lot of opportunity. Sister Paula also wants us to keep in mind that radio is a tool like many others, and there still needs to be rules and regulations and be closely monitored. She's thinking through how it was used in the genocide in Rwanda, and has been used in different types of for different types of harm. That's one example of many. And so it's a tool like many others, and just lifting up the fact that we have to understand that there are rules there. And I'm sure that that's a very great point. And, we will need to ensure that there are rules and regulations to ensure safety, and that like every tool that is utilized for what it's supposed to produce, and not harm, but good, right? But building. So thank you, Sister Paula, for that. And we wish you great luck on, you don't need luck, but many blessings as you blow up the spot at your radio appointment tomorrow. And so thank you for telling us about that. So speaking of radio, I just put on the Jumbotron the resource that we can all start checking out, something we all can start doing, right now, which is to check out Black Information Network, which is the first of its kind 24/7 national and local all news audio service for the Black community, off of iHeartMedia.com. And the link is pinned to the Jumbotron. And to just check out what are the other channels locally where you are at. And start to freedom dream as to how we can sort of elevate, expand, nurture these platforms to begin to enable them, with the capacity to eventually, things have to grow, but eventually provide the kind of impact that we made happen on Twitter. Because remember, we made this happen. We can make it happen on Twitter. We can make it happen on Twitter. We can make it happen on Tada. We can make it happen on Tada, like whatever the hell we're going to call the next thing. Okay. We can make it all happen, right? We are the secret sauce. So if we choose and say, you know what, this is what we're going to do, we'll make it pop, period, because that's what we do. So again, know our power and revel in it, right? Revel in it. But yeah, feel free to check out that Black Information Network, first of its kind 24/7 national and local all news audio service, and check those out, what's going on in your neighborhood, and feel free to freedom dream individually and collectively for how we can start to build the platforms for us, by us, and have the impact that we always have when we show up in the spot. So again, thank you again, Sister Lana, Sister Pascal, Sister Nisi, Dr. Day. Thank you, everybody in the audience. I see you, wonderful Dr. Han, Monica. Thank you for joining us, Brother Benny. Thank you, every single one of you. Thank you. Just so much love again. I see you, Sister Phyllis. Thank you for making it in. I was missing you, so I'm glad you helped get rid of that feeling by showing up. Black Public Health, shout out. That might be Brother Boladi or GB or Sister Jackie. But welcome, and thank you for being here. Black Public Health Collective, doing great work in Canada. And so with that being said, again, love yourselves. Self-love is very key, y'all. Love each other, absolutely. Build community and build power. And so I'm gonna play us out with some music, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And don't forget, keep the conversation going. And I want to hear all about it. Love you.